I've been pulled into the black dimension, and I just got through watching the Anderson Silva Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. fight, and yeah, I would say that I was impressed with the performance of Anderson Silva to say the least. Let me show you what I'm talking about. Let me pull up a article here. Says Anderson Silva stuns Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. by split decision in a boxing match. Now, I was wondering, like after observing the fight, why the fight was split decision, because I'm going to tell you right now, Anderson Silva dominated that boxing match. Um, I think the thing is with MMA fighters and boxers is as of late, the MMA fighters haven't been looking very good, and sorry that has been based on everyone's opinion of the Ben Askren Jake Paul fight. So um, here's a couple things going into the fight. Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. seemed to have underestimated his opponent in Anderson Silva because of the Jake Paul thing. So Julio, but here's the thing: Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. He missed weight by almost 2.5 pounds, so he had to forfeit $100,000 of his purse to Anderson Silva. You can also see it in the fight itself. Anderson Silva fought like an actual boxer. Like this is that's he's one of the most prolific strikers in MMA history. I mean, he was a very dominant champion, probably the most dominant champion in that organization's history itself. No kidding. Um, when I first saw him in the UFC when he fought Chris Lieben, I knew he was something. But see, they said, yep, going into the fight, Silva was a heavy underdog, and he had not competed in a boxing match since 2005. Sounded like that was shortly before he entered the UFC. And Chavez Jr., he had a legacy to fulfill because the event itself was called A Tribute to the Kings. And it was a tribute to the rivalry of his father, Julio Cesar Chavez Sr., and Hector Macho Camacho. This fight was a co-main event of, with the other fight being Julio Cesar Chavez Sr. versus the son of his late great rival, Hector Camacho. That was a 5 round exhibition fight. This fight right here, Chavez Jr. and Silva, was an actual boxing match. And I'm not kidding when I say this, Silva dominated. Silva actually absolutely dominated. He started out a little slow at first, but after a while, for everything Silva was throwing at him, Chavez didn't have a good answer for it. And I have to say this, even the commentary was trying to be nice to Chavez at first, but then they started to flip their opinion to Silva. So I mean, it's like not that I'm playing favorites or anything, because like I'm a huge fan of Anderson the Spider Silva. In fact, the last few fights of his in the UFC were disappointing because once he got beat by Chris Weidman the first time, it just seemed like he couldn't rebound from that, and he only won one MMA fight since since that loss to Chris Weidman, and he wasn't. And that's the thing that seems to happen to a very dominating, undefeated fighter. Once that one person beats them, and this has happened to Conor McGregor, and this has also happened to Ronda Rousey. The fighter is not quite the same. So, not only was I impressed by the level of boxing skill that Anderson Silva displayed in this fight against an established boxer, I mean, it just felt like I was watching for a moment the younger, more dominant Anderson Silva again, who really was getting cocky and very confident in the fight. Which one part of the fight, he actually backed himself back into the corner, and just to see if what Chavez had. every time Chavez threw something strong, it was like Silva was unfazed by it. And it's by the eighth round, and it did go the distance. Silva looked like he wasn't even gassed, while he had already like beat up Chavez quite a bit and had a cut over his eye. Now, what I didn't agree with was how the commentary handled it at the end of the fight, saying that it was a controversial decision. No, nothing was controversial about that at all. Kudos to one of my favorite fighters of all time, Anderson the Spider Silva, uh, for Chavez Jr. to be as established as he is. It seemed to me like he didn't take the fight seriously. I did see some signs of a boxer, but to do this against a typical MMA fighter, no, not so typical, that's used to not only using his fists, but using his knees, using his feet, using his elbows, then it's not that Chavez looked like he didn't belong in the ring. It was that Anderson Silva looked like he did belong in that ring. And like I said, one of my favorite fighters of all time. So, uh, yeah, Anderson Silva definitely proved that a fighter is a fighter, whether it's MMA or the boxing ring or whatever uh, one-on-one confrontation that you can think of. Is a fighter is a fighter, and Anderson Silva definitely has a love for what he does. So good, good job, good show. And also, as recently reported, he's also open to facing the Paul brothers. So if that ever happens, for the performance that Silva put on in the ring, and great feet work, by the way, I would say that it'll be pretty interesting. Uh, Once again, good job, Anderson Silva. And this is Kev, and you have been pulled into the black dimension. Hopefully, you can find your way out. Till next time.